Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Re-Federalist Radio, where we take a look at current events through an original intent of the Constitution lens. I am Brady, also known as War Hamster. Joining me today again is my good friend, constitutional mentor, Mr. Constitution himself, Douglas V. Gibbs.
Glad to be here as always. And I've had an interesting morning. Real quick, if you don't mind, I want to touch on the news. So that giant earthquake tsunami warning, we're still in tsunami warning where I'm at on the Oregon coast till about 5 this afternoon. But they're talking like 1.5 foot swell. So
it's probably not going to make it up to you, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, no, I'm up the hill a little bit, but it has been fun with my phone going off constantly with all these tsunami warnings from the sheriff and from the county. And but anyway, let's go ahead and kick into high gear here.
Yeah, real quick on that note, when I lived in San Diego, I had a condo overlooking the beach in Solana Beach, and there was a tsunami warning coming in the morning, so we all skipped work and had a champagne brunch tsunami watch. The biggest waves we saw was me diving into the pool. It was a big non-event, but it was fun.
Well, real quick, so when they had the last one, which is when that nuclear reactor in Japan, the earthquake and all that jazz, that one actually did do a little bit of damage when the tsunami came in. All the boats headed out to sea, except for 2 of them. The 2 that remained, they were toothpicks after it was over. So,
yeah, it is a powerful force of nature. That's no doubt about it. Hey, before we jump in, I just want to thank all those listening on America Matters Radio, 93.7, KPGF, and AM 1060, and all of you listening on the affiliate networks and stations, especially ZakiRadio.com. Okay, today's topic, we are going to talk about RussiaGate, for lack of a better term. I was thinking about this getting ready for the show, Doug. We had Watergate because it was named after the Watergate Hotel. But now any single time there's a scandal, we got to put gate by it. Are we going to stuck with this the rest of our lives?
Well, yeah, especially if it's someone who's hated like as much as they hated Nixon.
Which is true. Yeah, that name, everything is a gate. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in sports, you name it, it's got to be a gate if it's a scandal.
Now, if you've read my website about what I've written about this, you'll notice I haven't called it RussiaGate. I call it the Russian hoax.
Well, that is probably more accurate. I think we'll go with that from now on. So those of us who've paid attention to this since 2016, there's been some great reporting on it. We've gotten research from the likes of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, from Devin Nunes leading the way. We've had Horowitz's report. We've had John Durham's report. Now, a lot of that information was kept classified, and that's what's coming out now. It's different. And when we get back from the break, we'll go into what's changed. But first, I want to talk about what those of us who really dug into the truth about the Russia hoax knew from day one. And it starts with allegedly the hack of the DNC. And I say that's air quotes on hack, which they attributed to Russia. And how did they attribute it? Well, CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity firm, basically said they tried to attribute it based on certain patterns. Well, the FBI never looks at the data at all, and they just went with it. Russia hacked the DNC. And that was all part of a Clinton plot to basically paint the idea that Trump is colluding with Russia. And it's getting hatched early on. There's a couple of small problems with CrowdStrike. Their leader, their 2 of their co-founders, Dmitry Alperovich, is a Ukrainian citizen who also worked they helped try to hurt Trump in the 2016 election. The country of Ukraine did. But Alperovich also sits on the Atlantic Council, where he is a close crony of none other than Hillary Clinton. The other issue is one of their other founders is Sean Henry. He's former FBI, where he worked directly underneath Jim Comey, Trump's fired FBI director. So it's a little bit too close. I mean, they should have recused themselves from the case. Bottom line, no one ever proved that Russia hacked the DNC.
And we knew from the very beginning, or at least those that were politically paying attention, that nothing was adding up. There was something going on, and we believed it to be a hoax right out the gate. We knew the truth, but we didn't have access to the evidence, all of the evidence, most of it, some of it, but not all of it, to really know not just that it was a hoax, but what the details were and who the players were.
Yeah, and throughout this whole thing, there's been an army of online researchers, people using FOIA requests to get this information out and really just detect the heck out of it and figure out exactly what these redactions meant, what name was that, who was meeting with who. Because one thing about the FBI is they take copious notes.
Right.
And they've got to the Freedom of Information Act still has power, even when they're trying to basically commit, a big Russian hoax against a duly elected president of the United States.
Yeah, you began with the word commit, but you were careful with that word. Trump's not careful with that word.
No, he's not.
He says it's treason.
Yeah, he's not holding back, and we'll get into that. That's part of the show today. This is all we're doing today is talking about this, because there's some constitutional questions that we'll answer in the second half of the show, and they're important ones. But what else did we find out? That they're basically using the FISA, using false information on a FISA warrant to spy on people in Trump's campaign, whether it be Carter Page, what have you. Because they got the 3-hop rule, where they can basically spy on anybody that you may have ever passed on the street 2 weeks ago. And the FISA court even wrote up that the FBI was abusing it. Dozens of times.
Is that sort of like the 3-second rule when you drop food on the floor?
No, it's actually far more potent than the 3-second rule. So they're spying on the Trump campaign. We find out early on that the FBI, led by Peter Strzok, they've launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane. We've just seen Jim Comey completely exonerate Hillary Clinton on her email scandal, and it's over and over again. Everything is, and basically he says, instead of being grossly negligent, she was terribly, careless or something like that. Made him a brand new legal term, and then out of nowhere says, yeah, but we don't think any real prosecutor would ever bring the case, even though that's not his call. Okay, that's all the lead up to it. They leak it out to the media with a Steele dossier, which is paid for by the Clinton campaign. Steele dossier put together by Christopher Steele. And that's how the media just runs with it as soon as President Trump got briefed on it by the FBI. I think that takes us to our first break, so we'll leave it there, and then we'll talk about what's new in this case and why is it in the headlines today. And we are back for Re-Federalist Radio. We're talking about RussiaGate, or as Doug likes to call it, the Russia hoax. We're giving the background information right now, everything we knew about this over the last 9 years. We proceed into Trump wins the election in 2016. The Obama administration, they're meeting over December and January about this whole Russian interference. They're investigating General Michael Flynn, Trump's incoming national security director. And we had some details about these meetings and the unmasking going on. A lot of that was aimed at General Flynn, because he knew what was going on. Had he gotten in there and been able to look behind the scenes at all the spying that was being done in the Trump campaign, he would have known what he was looking at, and it could have caused some serious havoc. So they wanted to get rid of him at all costs, and they did.
Yeah, he had been in there around these people and in there long enough. He knew what was behind the curtain, so to speak, and who was pulling the levers, and that was a danger to their whole thing.
Yeah, and I've met General Flynn on a number of occasions. The guy just reeks of credibility. You meet the guy, you know that he's just about as rock solid as they come, or he's just an amazing actor. But I vote for the former, not the latter. My BS detector did not get set off at all. Then we get to skip forward a little bit. Bob Mueller becomes a special counsel, and he hires this hit team of ex-DOJ lawyers. A lot of them have been discredited in the past, including on the Enron investigation, being bounced out of court 9-0 by the Supreme Court. And they investigate, basically take over Trump's entire Department of Justice for 2 years. They basically would put most of his entire goals and plans for the entire administration on hold. It was a major speed bump. He's having to defend himself against Russia the entire time. And again, this was made up by the Hillary Clinton from day one. Bob Mueller comes up with absolutely nothing. The Mueller report, there was no evidence. There was never any there. This whole thing was based on what's called an ICA, an investment community assessment. The original investment community comes in, and a lot of the investment professionals, they've got pretty serious rules of what they have to do to, make something an assessment which we have high confidence in. Well, their confidence was that Russia didn't collude at all. Turns out, and this is
not only that they didn't collude at all, but they weren't capable of it.
Yeah, nor did they have a preference for Trump over Hillary, which was one of the big things that John Brennan inserted into the ICA, which we're going to get to. So I'm going to share my screen. The Russia thing never quite went away. A lot of Democrats, Congress critters, ran on that, impeaching Trump for Russia collusion in 2018. Democrats took over the House. Now we get impeachment 1.0 over an innocent phone call, impeachment 2.0, which we'll talk more about. And again, there's never any there. This is all fabricated by the intelligence community at the request of Hillary Clinton's campaign. So I am going to share my screen for those watching. I'll try to do this for those of you who aren't watching. I will, I got to make sure I get the right one here. Here it is.
Yeah, fill in the blanks. And, real quick, one of the things that you were mentioning while this is coming up is preference over Trump over Hillary. No, if anything, and this is one of the reasons why we knew it was a hoax, is Putin would prefer Hillary. Weaker foreign policy, someone who's closer to what he believes. And so even just the idea that Putin would prefer Trump over Hillary was completely ridiculous.
Yeah, we got to go back a little bit to the Russian reset. Again, air quotes on that, because when Obama came into office, Hillary was his Secretary of State, and they beat the drums on what they called the Russian reset. We're going to get along with the Russians. And they do a big technology sharing project called Skolkovo, which is basically a Russian Silicon Valley. And about, I don't know, it's like 15 or 20 different American companies, defense contractors, computer companies, etc., go there and set up shop, and they're sharing secrets with the Russians. That gets canceled when the Department of Defense puts the brakes on it. Interestingly enough, like every single one of those companies that went there to Skolkovo were also major donors to the Clinton Foundation. I'll let that hang there for a second. Yeah, I mean, just one of those interesting coincidence, right? Yeah. Well, Skolkovo gets shut down. I think really what happened, where the bad blood between Putin and the Obama administration happened was, we were staging color revolutions in the Middle East. It was getting too close to Russia's front door, and they started playing a little bit hardball, said, you're encroaching on us a little bit too close for comfort.
Now they decided to turn on Russia for a primary reason. When I say they, I mean the Democrats, because Russia did something that was unforgivable to them. They got rid of their communism.
All right, so what we have here on the screen here is an article. There's a bunch of articles on this. Tulsi Gabbard, as a DNI, is declassifying a ton of things. This director of the CIA, John Radcliffe, is declassifying.
Yeah, for those of you who are out there and you don't know this, or you have forgotten, don't forget, this is a former Democrat. This is someone who used to be a believer on the other side, met Trump, got to looking under the skirt and behind the curtain and went, whoa, I'm on the wrong team. And so, to me, those people are more dangerous to the Democrats than the Republicans that have always been Republicans, because there's kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a score to settle, maybe. I don't know. But
go ahead. I want to be careful not to make this a Republican versus Democrat thing, because this wasn't just the Democrats going after Donald Trump.
Well, sure. There's the Rhino establishment also.
And that's evidence. I told you we had the House Intelligence Committee came up with a good report that got it right. Well, at the same time, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which is pretty much the beating heart of the deep state, comes up with a report that says that agreed that Russia colluded with Donald Trump to steal the election. Just a friendly reminder that Marco Rubio was on that Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. He is now the Secretary of State. Rubio got confirmed by the Senate 99-0. So I've got a pause on really being too excited about the great job Rubio appears to be doing.
And there's two things going on with what you just said. Absolutely, there was an element, and still is an element in the Republican Party that is not necessarily on board with the Trump train, so to speak. And the other one is Trump has changed the party. Who the Republicans were or not who they are. Now, who the Republicans were, there is still a residue of that. And in some cases, perhaps Rubio, perhaps not, that stink may remain and just have changed because, gosh, if I don't work with Trump, I'm out of a job. So, there might be other things going on. But understand something. You're talking about the uniparty is what you're talking about. And in the deep machine, the uniparty definitely existed and in many ways still does. But Trump has remade this whole system. The uniparty is on the run, and we're starting to see contrast between the parties. So while I agree in the past, while the GOP most of the time seemed to be on my side, in the deep machine, it really was both sides feeding from the same trough. But I don't necessarily think that's the case as much anymore. Those swamp creatures still exist, but it's not what it was.
Yeah, the national security state has had decades to embed itself, and basically, the politicians that hold the seats of power in D.C. work directly with the national security apparatus.
Well, and you're talking the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy we still have a lot of work there. The deep state, the swamp, whatever you want to call it, there's still a lot of work there. That still is embedded with the swamp creatures we're trying to get rid of, and a lot of them claim to be Republican, and most of them, they're just federal staffers or whatever. But once again, while I agree that at one time the deep machine was the uniparty that you talk about, I don't think that's so much the case anymore.
Okay, let's get into these screen shares. The first one from the Epoch Times came out with 5 revelations from the newly declassified Russia records. And the subheadline is: the U.S. intelligence community relied on a single, scant, unclear, unverifiable report to allege that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help Trump. The intelligence professionals did not want this included in the intelligence community, whatever, the ICA. John Brennan insisted it be in there. John Brennan insisted that the Steele dossier, which is completely superfluous and made up by a former British spy, Christopher Steele, paid for by the Clinton administration. The Steele dossier is mentioned as one of the 5 things, and basically, how did Brennan force that to be in there? The next major, they had a subheadline: the CIA's deputy director for analysis warned the CIA director that including the dossier in any form risked undermining the credibility of the entire paper. This is a career intelligence professional telling the CIA director, don't do this. Well, the reason they're doing this is apparently Obama had met with Brennan and Comey in his inner circle and said, you can't put out this opinion that Russia isn't colluding with Trump. You can't put that on the president's daily brief, because Trump's now the president-elect, and he gets the same presidential daily intelligence brief. So burn this one and give me a new one that says the opposite. So that's pretty bad. All right, we'll continue down to the other findings. The House Intelligence Committee found that 3 substandard reports underpinned the assessment that Putin interfered in the election to help Trump. That was Devin Nunes' committee. This has been classified for almost 5 years now. And Devin Nunes knew the whole time what was on it, and he was unable to leak anything. Now it's out there in public.
Now, that said, some of what was found hidden in the FBI headquarters there was placed there by Devin Nunes. He couldn't say anything, but he could save the evidence in a place to be found later.
Which he did.
Which he did. Yeah.
Devin Nunes is a hero in all this, and so is Kash Patel, to be honest with you. He was the chief investigator in this stuff.
I'm a big fan of Kash Patel.
Yeah, I got a lot of people mad at him because he wasn't able to basically take down the entire deep state in 6 months straight. But guys, it takes time to build a case this big, because we're talking about a major conspiracy here.
And you're talking about false data being mixed into it. And you've got to get your sifter out and figure out what's false, what's real, what are the real clues, what is a misdirection, smoke and mirrors. And so understand, Kash Patel, Bongino, and even Tulsi Gabbard and even Pam Bondi are dealing with all of that. So we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, they also said the assessment fails to clarify that, quote, the plan was just an email with no date, no identified sender, no clear recipient, and no classification. It was garbage intelligence, but they used it to basically put our entire country and Trump's administration on its heels. What else we find? Oh, talking about the compressed timeline. Basically how Obama originally, the report that he wanted out, the new revised ICA, he was originally going to have it out by January 20th, his last day in office. He moved that up to January 6th, and that's a pretty interesting date for this release.
It is.
That was the day of basically where they certify the electors, and that's the compressed timeline. And that's right
now. We're right on our break, so let's take our break, and then after that, we're going to continue going through this.
All right, sounds good. We will see you all on the other side. All right, everybody, we are back. I am Brady, also known as War Hamster. With me is Mr. Constitution, Douglas V. Gibbs, and we are talking today about the Russia hoax. A few more headlines that we want to go over, recent news about what just changed. If I can get my screen up there. And it should be coming. I'll go ahead and tell you what it says in the meantime. Details are buried in recently declassified documents that further implicate Obama in the Russian hoax. As Doug mentioned, Donald Trump's out there very loudly on Truth Social saying, Obama was guilty of treason. We're going to parse our words a little more than that, but let's find out a little bit more whether that can actually happen. Another article we have recent is the Russia collusion hoax is worse than you think. This is from the Federalist.com. They've been covering it very well. New revelations suggest a conspiracy at the heart of the Obama White House to target Trump as a Russian agent. Now, these are papers that can be sued for making an accusation like that. So this is not without some merit. That's right there. Next one I have is an article. It says, the House Intel Chair, declassified docs show Obama directed PSYOP. Rep. Rick Crawford, that currently sits at the head of the Intel Committee, says the report his committee put together in 2020 exposes the people behind the Russia collusion hoax.
Yeah, the image is still on the last one, by the way. Okay. The Russia collusion hoax is worse than you think. There you go.
There it is. The important part here is it shows it was an Obama-directed PSYOP. He does not have plausible deniability after these recently declassified documents. That's a bit of a problem for him. Last one I want to show is going to be just recently. Kash Patel found thousands of sensitive Trump-Russia probe docs inside the burn bags in a secret room at the FBI. FBI Director Kash Patel has turned over the documents to Senate Judiciary Committee Chuck Grassley, which means Grassley will be reviewing it. This will all be public. They're being very transparent with this. They're being very methodical.
They were slashing and burning and destroying everything they could. And there were reports as Trump was getting ready to take office coming out that was going on. But we didn't know what the documents were. And this was a part of it, apparently.
Yeah, and we've always speculated that the Mar-a-Lago raid on Donald Trump's property was because they were looking for these RussiaGate documents. We don't have evidence of that quite yet, but there's some of those Freedom of Information Acts and some of the court cases that went through as this was working its way through the courts, the Jack Smith hoax cases. So we do have a pretty good idea of what they were looking for. It's just we can't prove it quite yet. I think we will be able to before it's all over. But what do we have here, Doug? We've got a conspiracy to commit what?
Well, we have a conspiracy to go after the president, to change the election in some of this stuff, to undermine a president's presidential office, and really to undermine the government. This is war against the Constitution, in my opinion. This could be considered treasonous. But here's where it gets very interesting. Because it's a conspiracy and there are so many things that are part of this conspiracy, this is not just what we see on the surface. Mar-a-Lago is a part of it, and the list goes on and on and on. But here's where it really gets interesting, and I'm probably jumping the gun here because you mentioned that we might be talking immunity here.
We're going to get there in 1 second.
There's an immunity thing that I'm going to tell you that's going to blow your socks off.
Yep, we're going to jump into that momentarily. But first of all, we talked about the Mar-a-Lago raid. Well, let's talk about the conspiracy first. People are worried about a statute of limitations. This stuff happened 9 years ago. Not so fast. This is an ongoing conspiracy. You can make the argument. The media is still covering this up, and
if they're all connected, the conspiracy is still going on.
Yeah, to this very day.
Right.
Yeah, so we do not have to worry about statute of limitations on that. What we do have to worry about is presidential immunity. And let's one step back. Because it's a conspiracy, and they brought Mar-a-Lago into play, this does not have to be stuck in a Washington, D.C. district court. It can be moved. It can be moved to Florida.
Yeah. So instead of having the 90% Democrat pool to choose from for jurors, because it didn't just happen in Washington. Mar-a-Lago raid means part of the conspiracy happened in Florida. And so one of the things that's always frustrated me is that the Democrats, the left, the establishment always like to pick their judges. They go judge shopping. Okay, fine. You want to play that game? We got Florida. It's a part of it. We can search for our court there because Florida, Mar-a-Lago was a part of the conspiracy, the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Indeed, it was. And I'm just going to read this headline, and you can jump in. I'm not going to steal all your thunder because I know what you're about to say. Trump's former impeachment lawyer, David Schoen, flips the script, uses Democrats' own argument to prove Obama can still be impeached, stripped of immunity, and indicted for his crimes. That's from July 29th. Doug, can you impeach a former president for,
you can't impeach him because you can't get rid of him, but so can they be criminally charged and criminally convicted? And so there's multiple things to look at here. A, what the Supreme Court said about Trump's immunity.
Let's talk about that. I've got that right here. So let's not skip past it.
Okay, so if the president is is carrying out the duties of his office, he's immune. If it's not a part of his office, he's not immune. So now, when it comes to Obama, right now, that's questionable. Treason isn't exactly part of your duties as president of the United States. That said, now we go to the Constitution itself, and in the Constitution, what it says is that, and let me go ahead and run over this. I should have had the page up already.
Sorry, let me just read the court case from Trump while you're looking for that.
Okay.
This is one paragraph. This was the Supreme Court decision in Trump versus United States on presidential immunity. It says, under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entities, a former president entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he is entitled to at least the presumption of immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. Last sentence, there is no immunity for unofficial acts. So Doug asked the question, well, if you're basically committing treason against an incoming president, is that do you see that in Article 2 anywhere?
As official acts, yeah. All right, now, what I was looking for, I found it right as you said, let me do this. But this is in Article 3, Section 2, at the very end, very final paragraph. The trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury, and such trial shall have been committed, but when not committed with that's not the one I was looking for. Let me I screwed that up. That's the wrong one.
It's all right. I can do a little bit of reading while you're waiting.
Yeah, but anyway, well, where I'm going, and I'm not going to go looking for it. I've got it in my head. I just can't remember where it's at. I thought that one was the one. It was it. Basically, what it says about impeachment regarding a president is that after a president is impeached, if they are criminal charges, after he's out of office, once he's no longer president, he can be charged for those criminal charges. But the president has to have been impeached and convicted first if it's going to be a criminal charge. Otherwise, the president has immunity. That's the Constitution. So on the first take of these two things, it's like, well, I guess Obama's untouchable. Not so fast. So what do we say about this conspiracy? It's still going on, right?
It is. You can certainly make the case that it is.
Okay, and President Obama, to this day, is still, covering it up? He's still saying things to cover it up after leaving office?
And John Brennan's certainly making the media rounds, saying this is all, it's all baloney.
So you can't claim presidential immunity for continuing what you're doing after you're no longer president. The cover-up's continuing. The conspiracy's still continuing. He's still a part of the conspiracy.
And to wit, the crime here, it's very, very multifaceted, but it is, in essence, when we can prove that under Obama's orders, John Brennan changed the intelligence assessment to indicate that Trump was colluding with Russia, therefore sabotaging his entire presidential term. And worse than that. I mean, there's more to this. There's a lot. Once you start getting into the realm of conspiracy, this scope of this can get really big, and that's why I was so pleased last week to hear the term government strike force to address this. A strike force is nothing to sneeze at. We've only had a few of those in the history of this country, but that gives an awful lot of. It's a lot more powerful than a special prosecutor, single special prosecutor office. It allows the strike force to use the entire weight of the United States government and its investigative powers and subpoena powers. And we've got so much documentation already from the FISA warrant scandal, from all these different trials. It's all out there. And guess who's got the power to unredact anything?
There you go.
That would be the President of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 3 minutes for a break. I think I want to talk about impeachment, the reality of it when we get back from the break. So let's not go there quite yet. You said hold the phone.
2 minutes.
Okay. You said hold the phone on that. Not so fast. We still might be able to. And right now you're going to go down the path of conspiracy. Was there more you wanted to add on that?
Well, it's just that because he's a part of this conspiracy and it's ongoing and it's gone beyond his presidency, Obama is not untouchable. And it is fascinating. The squeaky clean, the president with no scandals. We were told so. There was no scandals during any of Obama's presidency. Yet this may be the president that could go down in history. May.
Well, the other
in
thing
an orange jumpsuit afterwards.
The implications also spreads throughout the entire intelligence community who participated. And that's from the FBI leadership through the CIA. A lot of other departments were involved as well. It goes across the pond to British MI6, where the entire spying of Carter Page began, with supposed to be a friendly government. It also takes in the entire media, who were the recipients of the leaks, nonstop leaks of classified documents from day one. The Steele dossier, what have you. And they basically, if this takes down the last bit of credibility of the media and nothing else, then this is a major victory. It's the biggest scandal in the country's history. But it's going to go deeper, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember the Democrat, but basically got on a podcast and said, well, she's lying. Oh, it was Ned Price, a writer. She's lying. Tulsi Gabbard's lying. There's no evidence. And besides, even if she does have all this evidence, there's proof that there was spying because, of all the Russian bots. Well, There's an answer to that called Hamilton 68. So, even they're reaching for anything they can grasp onto to say, see, everything's okay. See, it's not what you think it was. No, there's evidence all over the place. So I'm fascinated. Now, I'm not going to get too excited here because, we know what we're up against. There's a real deep evil, deep state. The swamp is real deep evil. It's time for break. Let's go to break.
And we are back for the final segment of today's show. We're hitting on the RussiaGate hoax. It's going to be known by many names. You'll see an awful lot of rebranding of this because the media is very much implicated. They're going to fight this tooth and nail, the mainstream media. They're going to put out headlines. They're going to do anything they can to derail this stuff, try to debunk it. I think it's not going to matter because their evidence is out there, plain and simple, and American people are going to see it. They're going to take their time and prepare a case properly.
And what this is this is the small opening. There's all kinds of things on the inside. And that nut has not been able to be cracked. And then now we've got this little bit of a sliver into one little crack. And once you open it up enough, everything gets exposed. That's why they're panicking. It's not just because of the Russia hoax. Yep. It's because once it's found out and once there is a there, it opens up other things that have been suggested that might be problematic, might have been criminally done, a production, and I got a long list in my head, but I'm not going to go through it because that'd be the rest of the show. But this could open the door to a much bigger room.
Yeah, I apologize in this format. We can't go as deep into all of these allegations as we'd like to do. Maybe we'll do it on future shows, hit different elements of it. But we're trying to give you the big picture and connect all the dots here. So we've established that former President Barack Obama may not necessarily have immunity for his unofficial act. But one of the things that we do have to talk about is impeachment. Doug and I have been talking about this for a while. About 220 years ago, they realized we had partisanship in the U.S. Senate. Factions were more important than doing the right thing. Impeachment stopped working. We had basically no check on the federal judiciary. We couldn't impeach a judge to save our lives. And this is the very founding of the country. We've got so much partisanship in in American politics right now. Even if we have all the evidence in the world, it's going to be really hard to get 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to convict on an impeachment. Now, here's something I wrote on another social media site just the other day, that this is the best argument for ending the national political parties. If Congress's intended check on the executive and judicial branches, which is impeachment, is an insurmountable task, then there really is no effective check by Congress on the executive or the judicial branches. What say you?
Well, and we've had this discussion before. I'm a firm believer that the elimination of the two-party system is not going to happen or impossible. And if the current party system as it was did get disassembled and fractured, vanished, we naturally form parties. We naturally form two sides. There would be, if you technically had no party right now, no political party, no sides, no red and blue, and we're just voting the person, and then an issue comes up, there are going to be those for it, there can be those against it. Birds of a feather flock together. They organize, they pick leaders, boom, you have your parties, and you wind up with two. And even in some place like Austria, who has 15 parties, they still wind up in two coalitions.
Yeah. Well, the issue isn't to basically make parties illegal because we can't. The First Amendment right to free assembly, all that. What you can do is definance them and they have a monopoly on the national campaign finance structure.
So what you're saying is taking money out of politics.
Which is actually polls really high in both Democrats and Republicans. And I'm just going to give this a brief little call out. I 3 or 4 years ago suggested an amendment. We call it the Brady Amendment for now, where you basically, the two main statutes is only registered voters should be able to contribute to campaigns. So that'd be no more PACs, no more corporations, no more super PACs, only registered voters. And part 2 is your campaign contributions should not be able to cross over state or county lines. If you're in Georgia, you don't want California money deciding your elections. You do those two things, and we got a much more fractured, and you're dealing with local parties, and it gets us a lot back to actual representation. But back to impeachment.
Now, well, real quick, let me do a counter here on that. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. Because the big money is gone and campaigns still continue to be expensive, then the money's going to come somewhere. So what's going to happen is those who don't have a lot of money won't be able to run. It'll only be the playground of the very wealthy.
That's not much of a change from what we have already. I mean, you and I have been...
Well, not necessarily, because there are those cases, and there was a... trying to remember... it was New Jersey. I can't remember the name of the guy now. And he basically knocked door to door. He was a professor and pulled it off.
Yeah, but in a state like California, you and I have both helped out political campaigns in California. If you do not get the blessing of the GOP, you're not getting the money. You just have to have that endorsement from the state GOP. State GOP is one of the most powerful in the country. The only way you're getting that endorsement is if you're one of those people who plays ball.
And that means in California, for those of you who don't live in California, that you're Democrat light or socialist light.
Doug, we got a couple minutes before we go. Take us home on impeachment, your closing thoughts on that. How can Obama be held accountable? Would impeachment happen?
Well, there won't be impeachment. Impeachment won't happen, but criminal charges can. Criminal conviction can. Because once again, he cannot, I don't believe he can be gone after for what he did as president in the official duties unless it's connected to something that's continued outside and it's criminal, and it has. So we're not looking at impeachment. We're looking at criminal conviction, be treated no differently than any other citizen that's been involved in this type of criminal activity, which is conspiracy and RICO, and the list goes on and on and on.
If what we're alleging is true, does that fit the definition of treason?
I think so. I believe so. And the definition of treason is not just, it's war against our system, but it's not just our system, our Constitution, not the government, but our system. And they are undermining the system, what the Constitution established, and there are foreign actors being colluded with. That's where the treason comes in. And
never forget, they always do exactly what they're accusing you of. Doug, to wrap us up, why don't you tell everyone where to find you real quickly?
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left still. You know that.
Oh, did I jump the gun on it? Did I have my timer wrong? Oh, geez. See, I'm new on radio, people.
That's okay. Well, see, I've got the world clock in front of me.
But doesn't it take you 5 minutes to tell everyone where to find you because you're all over the place?
Well, it may take 2.5 to 3, but really where you need to go is DouglasVGibbs.com. But I am now on some type of show, radio, podcast, vidcast, something, 6 days a week, seven shows a week. And so that means Tuesday, MrConstitution.com with a hyphen between the Mr. and the Constitution. My friend's Rumble page, Untold History. Find the videos that say Learn the Constitution or come in live 3:30 Pacific on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, here we are. Thursdays, I'm right here at 11. Fridays, now I'm going to be from 5 to 7 Eastern, 2 to 4 Pacific on the Patriot Soapbox Network with my own 2-hour program. And I have a feeling Mrs. Constitution is going to join quite a bit, as well as the War Hamster and other characters that may make your day. And then Saturday, radio, KMET 1490 AM, 1 p.m. Pacific in the Los Angeles Riverside market, San Diego market, 8 p.m. KCBQ, KPRZ, and then Sunday nights, For the Republic, Patriot Soapbox with my friend Alan Myers, 5 to 7.
And occasionally a visit from the War Hamster.
And occasionally a visit from you. See, and you still got 4 minutes left.
Very good. Well, if you want to hear more of my material, the best place to find me is on Rumble. Just go War Space Hamster. That's my biggest channel. You can also find me on YouTube, a little harder to find. Also on X or Twitter at War_Hamster1776. Why did I pick that number? Because I am a patriot.
And let me say this real quick. If you want to read what's going on in the world, but with a constitutional and conservative angle, go to DouglasVGibbs.com. Let me, real quick, if you don't mind, just real quick, give you some of the headlines just from what I've written the last few days. Disunited Nations Climate Globalist Power Grab. WNBA's Pay Us What You Owe Us shirts miss the point. And Delta's AI pricing plan, high-tech wealth redistribution. That's the kind of stuff you'll get at DouglasVGibbs.com. Don't miss it.
And everybody, I subscribe to Doug's newsletter. I read almost every single one of his articles, and he is an outstanding writer and is worth the subscription, so please do follow him. All right, so this is a pretty fast-paced episode. Probably one of the biggest topics of conversation. Is we didn't talk about Epstein for the entire... Folks, this is bigger. This has a chance to be much bigger than the Epstein deal.
Well, and I think this will open up doors to things like Epstein.
It certainly could. I mean, you got a lot of the same players involved in the cover-up. I mean, Maureen Comey was in charge of the Epstein files. That's James Comey's daughter. And, boy, wouldn't it be nice to be able to subpoena some of those father-daughter emails?
Yeah.
And again,
and let's not forget that we have a constitution that established our system with a lot of checks and balances. And these people are doing everything they can to avoid, usurp, or disappear those checks and balances.
Yeah, and they've been hiding the documentation. But, the system it really is, this huge bureaucratic system is going to work against them because our government writes everything down. It's almost impossible to delete everything.
Well, and if you're into computers, you know this. Even after you delete something, there is a shadow of it. There is a trace of it somewhere.
Except for in the case of my old laptop, which nobody could recover. One glass of wine spilled on the dashboard.
One glass of wine. So is that the key to covering everything? Just wine? You meant WINE, not WHINE. Never mind.
Like with a cloth, Doug. Like with a cloth.
Well, and I want to mention real quick before we go off the air, what an enjoyable time I've had with you on this show, and you listeners. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to watch this, listen to this. But don't forget, if you don't catch us live, ZakiRadio.com. ZakiRadio.com. Hit one of those 4, find the episode, or if you want to watch live, you can go to ZakiRadio.com while we're on live and go to whichever one, Rumble or whatever, and then one of the boxes will say live, right on, right now, hit it. And that's a great way to catch us. Once again, everything I do, Douglas V. Gibbs, including in my social media, and then War Hamster, don't forget that you can go to his page. Just go put in the search bar there at rumble.com. War Hamster, it's usually the first one.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of the other shows that Doug and I do together. We just recorded earlier what's called the Re-Federalist Report. We're going through line by line James Madison's notes from the Philadelphia Convention, original intent of the Constitution in the mouths of the founding fathers themselves. We've been doing shows for several years now. There's a whole archive of all of our older stuff there. If you want to learn the Constitution, there is no better place.
And I will be in Southern California and in Michigan and in Arizona, Las Vegas, all kinds of events coming up over the next few months. Keep a track at DouglasVGibbs.com. I'm out there. But anyway, it's a pleasure being here. We got about 5 seconds.
Till next time, everybody. Cheers.